All right. First guest tonight, cooking everything outside or near some kind of live fire, and he's doing it on some great-looking cooking vessels. If you follow him on Instagram, and almost 31,000 of you do, you know his dishes not only look great, but we're all dying to get a taste as well. But what's the story behind the man known as Grillseeker? Well, let's head to the hotline and find out. Matt Eads joins me here on the show. Matt, how are you, buddy?
Hello.
Matt.
Yeah, I lost you here on Skype. Not sure what's going on.
Well, look, I've often said the best sound checks prove to be the worst when it actually counts. Come on. I mean, this is just what happens with the internet. You know, it's what happens.
Do you want me to try to connect with you again, or do you just want to roll like this?
No, let's roll like this. We want to make sure we keep good time here. We got a lot of stuff to cover. So, Matt Eads joining me here on the show. Grillseeker, the website, grillseeker.com, and on Instagram at Grillseeker. Matt, before we get into, some of the cooking stuff and recipes, maybe some social media talk, I do want to get a little background about you. So first and foremost, where do you grow up, and then where do you find yourself present day?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot for having me on the show. I grew up just outside of Detroit, Michigan, in southeastern Michigan, so just a little bit north of where you are. I'm a lifelong Detroit Lions fan, and I know living in Cleveland, you can appreciate the pain and agony I've been through going 0-16, like the Browns have done as well.
We're trying to forget about that, Matt, by the way.
Yeah. And I bounced around a lot. I joined the military at a young age and bounced around a lot in the military, and I now call just outside of Washington, D.C. here in Northern Virginia home.
You had mentioned that you were in the military at a young age. So, do you go right in out of high school, and what branch do you serve?
I did. I joined the Marines right after graduation from high school, and I spent 13 years really serving all over. Honestly, I remember thinking, when I was on active duty, I can't believe they pay me to do this. I really enjoyed my time, enjoyed meeting a lot of just great people from all walks of life.
Wow.
And it was just a remarkable experience.
13 years, so that's a little short of full time or being able to retire out. What called you out, I guess, after you stay in for that long?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I got asked that a lot. 13 years, geez, you're over the hump, and you're close to retirement, and
right.
and so there were a number of things. I had some issues with my knee that were kind of lingering on, and that kind of affected a little bit of my performance. But really, I wanted to go to school. I wanted to go to college, which I did not do, obviously, after high school enlisting in the Marines. So after 13 years, I left the Marines, and I was a 30-year-old freshman at Penn State.
You don't stand out too much doing that, right?
Yeah, I might have differed somewhat from the average, 18-year-old freshman in a class of 1,000.
Man, let me ask you a question, because I did ask Susie Bullock this last week when we were talking, because she had went to college and then got married pretty quickly out of there, had some kids and so forth. And I asked her this question, wanted to get your take, because you go from high school, do military, get out at 30, decide you're going to go back to college because you missed that experience as well. But, I mean, you are a way different person, having been through the military, served the country, seeing what you saw, being 30 and doing college versus somebody just going right out of high school. Do you think that taking the time after high school, granted 13 years, maybe an extended military time away versus the 4 typical, but do you think having that time made you a better student or prepared you better to be more successful versus thinking, okay, well, high school's over, so I just got to go to college?
Unquestionably so. And I would say that had I gone to college right out of high school, which was certainly not an opportunity that I had, nor did I want, to be honest with you, right out of high school, I would not have lasted long. I just didn't have the focus. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And growing up in really an industrial sort of area, and you're familiar with that area, it was not, in my peer group, it was not expected, like in Northern Virginia, as an example, where kids are talking from a very young age about where they're going to college. So where I grew up, it was more of a, you're going to college, that sort of a thing. So people generally went to one of the big 3 and worked in automotive, or they joined the military, and so the military was the path that I chose. At 30, I had a different appreciation for life. I had a different appreciation for the finances that it took to go to college. So that was a big differentiator. The typical, and I won't say all, but certainly the typical 18-year-old is in college because that's just what you do next.
Right.
And someone else is paying for it. They don't necessarily have an appreciation for it. So at 30, I paid for college on, using my GI benefit, but I had a limited amount of money that I had in reserve to live off of to be a full-time college student. So I was there for maybe different reasons. It certainly wasn't because that's what you do next. It was because I really, really wanted to just kind of embrace the academia. And so yeah, I mean, in short, I certainly took different things from college that maybe an 18-year-old would not have taken, and had some really interesting conversations with professors, especially as you get into upper level courses that generally are teaching to a 20 or 21-year-old audience that, we can exchange thoughts and practical application of what they're teaching to real life environments. So definitely got a different experience than most. And I think that generally speaking, professors appreciated, what they call an adult learner. So yeah, definitely a different experience. And I took much more out of it than I would have had I tried to do it at age 18.
Matt Eads joining me here on the show at Grillseeker on Instagram, grillseeker.com, his website, if you want to check it out here while we're chatting it up. So you get out of college, when we start to transition over into live fire stuff, is this something that you're just around during your time, whether it was in the military or when you got out, started doing college, and or where do you find the love of live fire cooking?
Yeah, that's a fun one. So I have a very distinct memory of the first time I cooked live fire, and I'm guessing it was around age 11, maybe 12-ish. I have a dear friend who I'm still dear friends with today, and we joined the military together, and just lifelong buddies. But around that age, we built sort of a fort out in the woods, like a lot of young boys do at that age, and this fort was like. It was incredible, right? It was near sort of a train track, so we built it out of these railroad ties, and it was just incredible. And so he would sneak food from his folks' deep freezer and cupboard, and I would do the same thing, and we would tote it out to this fort, and build a fire, an open pit fire, and we started, cooking on various surfaces. I think I borrowed, and I'll use that term loosely, my mom's Lodge cast iron pan that she had back then, and we just started cooking over live fire at that age, and that's really what sparked my real interest in live fire cooking. Fast forward a couple of years, I had a handful of jobs. Worked at a meat market for a time, and bought my first smoker back then. It was an old Brinkman. I don't know if you remember that, but I don't know if they're still around. Actually.
Bullet style,
like a Brinkman. Yeah, bullet style Brinkman smoker, and smoked up some turkeys. And working at Danny's grocery store, it was like a meat market. I used to get, meat for fairly cheap or whatever scraps were left over. And, I was certainly never a butcher, but I got to learn a lot from those guys. I mostly did stocking shelves or bagging groceries or cleaning up or whatever in the evenings. But I used to get meat for fairly cheap. And so, I started to develop more of a love for it as I kind of dialed in that old Brinkman. And, back then there were no temp controllers like they have now. I had no instant read thermometers. So it was really it was pretty rudimentary. And so that's where the passion got started from that young age. And then, as I served in the military in various countries, various places, there's always a grill like around the barracks or whatever, where we lived. And I was just kind of always the guy that kind of manned the grill and cooked whatever we could find at the commissary for cheap. We were all living on a pretty limited budget. And I think I just had, some of the best times cooking some really inexpensive things. And I've said a million times, like it doesn't take a chef to cook a Wagyu steak, right? I mean, you could eat that thing raw; it tastes pretty good. But it takes some real talent to take a $9 chuck roast and turn it into a real gem. And I kind of started to really do that when I was in the military. And throughout college, like as I had any spare time as a 30-year-old freshman, like I was always cooking and I made a lot of mistakes. I've got I actually have a section on my website that I call How Not To, and it's just kind of some bloopers that I've done, and I've done plenty of them over the years. And learning by making mistakes and watching other folks.
Matt, what do you do for a living, or is this Grillseeker thing the full-time gig?
Yeah, this is it. Full-time
Wow.
gig for Grillseeker, grillseeker.com, and writing the book obviously took a lot of time, but yeah, this is it full-time.
Favorite cookers? What do you like?
Well, it's an interesting one. I'm really
All of them,
enjoying
right?
the Lynx Napoli oven these days.
Yep.
I cook just about everything in there. It's just so fun to mess with it. So right now that's probably my go-to.
Do you have other cookers that are on your deck or your patio, or do you kind of cycle one in, one out?
Yeah, so I think at this point maybe around 13 or 14. I don't keep many more than that. I'm limited on space, and my wife has said that for every one grill that comes in, one has to go. So at this point, I'm very limited.
I mean,
Um,
why do
but
wives always got to say that? They ruin it. I got the same deal.
right?
My wife told me, "Hey, man, you bring another one in, you're gonna have to give another one away."
Yeah, I think if the same applied for like purses and shoes, like I'd be on board with it. But at this point, it's like maybe this isn't quite so fair. Like I'm sure we can just move another car, like you move the car out of the garage and store something there. But so yeah, I've got a handful of cookers, and I use them for different things. And then they all, I do a lot of reviews on my website as well. So, but generally those get, I do the review, and then it will generally get donated to some, local fire station or whatever.
Do you have, I guess, what you would call sponsor or partnerships with manufacturers right now?
I do have a handful, and it's pretty limited. And that's just sort of the way that I like to roll. But certainly Lynx has been a great partner of mine. Omaha Steaks is another terrific partner of mine. And I work with Route 83 Knives, which they're fairly new to the scene, but they put out some really incredible cutlery.
So, are you, from a responsibilities standpoint, and we can just keep it high level, are you responsible for recipes, like videos showing product use, and also are you also giving feedback to those partners of yours that, hey, if you had to redo it, I would do this, this, and this, or maybe you want to tweak this or add a little bit more fat versus beef ratio? Like, what's your input on that regard?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I would start by saying, anytime that I've ever been approached by by any brand that might want to work together, and what I would encourage really anybody to do is I made a promise to myself and early on to say that I would never for any price represent a product that I don't feel comfortable giving as a gift to a friend or family member, and I stick to that first and foremost. And so you'll get contacted as you get more followers on Instagram. It's kind of like it's pretty standard. You get reached out to by various manufacturers or sauces, rubs, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And they'll ask, do you want to work with us? And I respond very politely and say, I can't answer that question. I need to try your product first, and then we can talk about it. But I can't commit to supporting anything that I haven't tried first. And I probably have said no more than I've said yes, just because I guess I'm pretty picky about a lot of things. So I have fewer, I guess, sponsorships or whatever they're called these days than some other folks might have. But I prefer to keep it that way, and I like to. I feel like I really need to. As I said, I need to feel like I can give it as a gift to a friend or family member, and feel proud of that before I can actually represent it. So that's kind of how it works.
And I guess that's where some of the delineation lays with sponsor or partnerships. You can be somebody that's maybe, like me, who has a real job, as I'm doing air quotes that you probably can't see. And, this has grown into, a pretty nice secondary, and I really love doing it. It started out from zero. I was making zero money, all that stuff. And I've said all the time, if all the sponsors dried up and I had to do the show next week, I would be here next week, because that's how the show was born. It was born out of me wanting to do this show. And if everything else went away and I still had the ability to get on the air the next week and do the show, then I would do the show, because I still want to do this. I still want to cater to this industry and bring news and bring entertainment, bring value, introduce cool people like you to the public that might not know about it. But then on the other side, there's folks that maybe don't have that moral suit and say, I want to grab everything I can while the iron's hot. And I guess, certainly if that's your path, you can work it the way you want to work it. But I find myself gravitating a little bit more towards the people that want to engage and, as you said, have that ethical part of, hey, would I give this a gift to somebody? No. Well, then I'm probably not going to just work up something here to line the pocket.
Yeah, exactly. I think you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about if all your sponsorships dried up, you'd be here next week doing the show because you love it. And that really is it. So, I tell people, and I get, asked a fair amount of times from various folks on social media or what have you that say, how do I get this following? And you have all this stuff. It must be all free. And people are sending you stuff all the time. And you must make oodles of cash. And I say to them all the time, like, if you want to get into this business, and I'll use the invisible air quotes that you talked about, if you want to get into this business and you think you're going to get rich, you're really in the wrong line of business.
Yeah.
Like there's probably a different hustle out there for you to do because you're not going to get rich. You really have to have a passion for it. And if you're not comfortable doing, what you're doing and supporting the people that you are supporting for any reason, if you're not comfortable doing that, you're going to be really tired really quick. So, the partnerships that I have are just so easy for me because they're just top shelf products that I literally recommend to everybody because there's no knock on them. So, it's a tough, and I don't begrudge anybody. People can promote what they want and do their business the way they're going to do their business. And if that means to take as much money as they can as quickly as possible, while the iron's hot, then so be it. I certainly wouldn't proclaim that the way I'm doing it is the right way. It's just what I'm comfortable doing. But there's also the aspect of a lot of, it's a tough sort of business because there are so many people that are willing to do this business for free or in trade for product.
Right.
And so it makes it tough. It really is. And it's kind of a cutthroat industry.
Matt Eads joining me here on the show. Grillseeker, the website, grillseeker.com, and on Instagram at Grillseeker. Matt, can I hold you over for one more segment? We'll talk about the book.
You bet.
All right, stand by. We're talking with Matt Eads, Grillseeker. I will talk to you quickly about Green Mountain Grills. Some of the best pellet cookers out there on the market today. That's right, 3 different sizes to choose from. The big one's the Jim Bowie. Maybe you're going to have a huge Super Bowl blowout, and you're looking for a big pellet cooker to handle the biz. Well, hurry up and go get your Jim Bowie, break it in, and away you go. You're going to be able to do multiple racks of ribs, probably a couple full-size briskets, 5, 6 pork butts, depending on if you're going to pan them or not. Maybe just have a really big family. Hey, that's going to be the one for you. Now, you want something not as big as a Jim Bowie, but not a portable cooker, something just a little smaller. How about the Daniel Boone model? I got one of those. Perfect for family of 4, maybe 5, or depending on how big you are, maybe you just like to cook a lot of meat and you live by yourself. Well, Daniel Boone might be the one you want to look at. Now, if you are into traveling, if you want something portable, Davy Crockett is the one you're going to want to take a look at. This one fits in the back of most trucks, vans, and SUVs. It is completely wood pellet fired, so you're not sacrificing the wood smoke. And it's totally portable. Now, if you don't have access to that traditional power outlet, you can use the 12-volt adapter that goes in your car or truck. You're powered up, ready to go. In fact, as I had mentioned a couple weeks ago, I'm thinking about putting my hands on one of those for softball season coming up this summer. That way I can show off in front of all the parents. Yeah, don't forget, Jason Baker is coming up in a couple weeks here, probably end of next month, to talk about Green Mountain Grills updates and revamps. Very excited. Also, don't forget that the Jim Bowie and the Daniel Boone, if you rip the guts out, you can put your hands on that pizza oven insert, and now it's a pizza party, pal. High heat pizza oven, all the way up to 1,000 degrees if you want. GreenMountainGrills.com. That's GreenMountainGrills.com. More with Matt Eads. Stick around. Be right back.